Hi everyone, this is Heidi and welcome back to Nusantara Fairy Tales with Heidi. And today I will be reading to you from the beautiful island of Phuket. I'll be telling you a story from the Philippines called The Hunter and the Seven Swimming Maidens. Now, why am I reading you the story from Phuket? The reason is because I haven't had a chance to record anything while I was at home. I've been very busy, and the only way I could get an episode out was to take all my equipment with me on holiday and do it here. This particular story comes from the Philippines, and it is actually quite similar to the story I told you in episode 2, which was the youngest fairy princess of Kayangan. If you haven't had a chance to watch that episode, have a look. That's episode 2. Now, this particular story is an oral tale from the Philippines, and it was collected from the Manobo people and is contained in the book The Maiden of Many Nations by Hazel J. Wrigglesworth. In this tale, the Sky Maiden, the fairy, escapes and returns to her heavenly abode, but she is pursued by her husband, who goes on a long, perilous journey and faces many hardships to win her love. So, in this regard, even though the man initially deceived the maiden into staying on Earth, his earlier wrongdoing is somewhat mitigated by the fact that he goes out to prove his worthiness. If you recall in the other story I told you, the youngest fairy princess of Kayangan, the man simply lost his wife when she took her wings back, when she took her magical garments back and returned home. So this is a little bit different. Now, it's interesting to note that this particular story describes this magical realm as east of the sun and west of the moon, which is incidentally a title borrowed from a Norwegian fairy tale about a search for a lost husband. So I thought that was quite interesting. So I will now simply read you the story. This story is contained in my book, Nusantara, A Sea of Tales, which is available at the moment on Amazon. I think they have copies in Kinokuniya and Popular and other bookshops. And I hope you'll enjoy the story. Once there was a hunter who was out hunting for wild ducks at a lake. He arrived before dawn and hid himself in the reeds so as not to be seen. Soon he heard the sound of beating wings, and assuming that his prey had arrived, got ready for the hunt. However, when the hunter appeared out of the reeds, he did not see any ducks, but instead he saw 7 beautiful maidens who looked as if they were sisters. The hunter kept hidden and watched as the maidens laughed and frolicked in the water. He saw that the youngest maiden was the most beautiful and decided that he would trap her. The maidens soon took off their magical garments to bathe in the lake, and the hunter watched carefully to see where the youngest maiden had kept her clothes. Then, moving silently, he crept up to the pile and hid them away. After the maidens had enough of swimming and playing in the lake, they got up to leave. They put on their magical garments and were about to fly off when the youngest one of them cried out, "My garments are missing." The maidens searched high and low for their sister's clothes, but of course to no effect, as the hunter had hidden them well. He smiled to himself. "We will fly home first, younger sister. You can join us when you found your clothes." The other maidens then flew off into the heavens, leaving their sister alone and at the mercy of the hunter. She began to weep. "Why are you crying, dear maiden?" asked the hunter once he was sure that they were alone. The maiden looked up, and when she saw him, she narrowed her eyes. "Someone has stolen my magic garments, and because of that, I can no longer fly home." She continued to stare suspiciously at the hunter. "Was it you? Did you take my clothes?" "No, I did not take your clothes. Why should I?" he said. "I do not believe you. Return my clothes now so that I can go home," she demanded. However, the hunter insisted that he was innocent and instead invited her back to his home. I will help you look for your clothes tomorrow. As it turned out, the hunter never helped the maiden look for her magical garments. Instead, he married her, and after 3 years, they had 2 children, a boy and a girl. One day, when the hunter was out, the children were playing in the house when they suddenly called out to their mother, "Mother, mother, we found some beautiful clothes. Do these clothes belong to you?" All this time, the heavenly maiden had suspected that her husband had stolen her magical clothes, and here at last was the proof. She looked at her 2 children and told them, "Children, tell your father that if he wants to find me, I will be at the place east of the sun and west of the moon." She then put on her magical garments and flew home. When the hunter came home, the children told their father what had happened. He told his children to stay home and be safe, and then he set off to look for his wife. He brought some of his children's clothes to prove that he was indeed the husband of the heavenly maiden. He traveled a long way and followed the river downstream until it reached the sea, where he met an old man who happened to be the owner of all the birds on earth. The hunter asked the man, "Do you know how I can get to the place east of the sun and west of the moon?" "I will ask my birds," replied the old man, and so he summoned all the birds on earth. "Do you know how to get to the place which is east of the sun and west of the moon?" "We do not," twittered the birds. "I'm sorry, hunter, I cannot help you. Why don't you ask the owner of all the fish in the world? He should know how to get to that place," said the old man. Once again, the hunter set off on his journey. This time he sailed across the sea and climbed 7 hills until he reached another sea. This journey took him 7 long years. When he reached the sea, he finally found the owner of all the fish in the world. "I have been searching for my wife for 7 years, but I have not found her yet. She is in the place which is east of the sun and west of the moon. Do you know where I can find this place?" he asked the old man. "Maybe it is far, maybe it is near," replied the old man, which was not very helpful. "I will ask my fish." The old man called out to the fish in the sea, and as they waited for all the fish to arrive, one of the fish swam towards the hunter and said to him, "That old man is the father of your wife. You should ask him where he lives, for that is where you will find your wife." The hunter turned towards the old man and asked if he could come to his house. "I am the husband of your daughter." To prove that the maiden was his wife, the hunter brought out his children's clothes. "My wife's thumbprints are on these clothes, which she has sewn for our children." The old man agreed to take the hunter to his wife, which was east of the sun and west of the moon. There he was reunited with his wife, who finally agreed to marry him again because he had successfully found her east of the sun and west of the moon. They brought their children to this magical place and lived happily ever after. The end. So what did you think of that story? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, please do like and subscribe and support me in my mission to get these folk tales out there. And I shall see you in the next episode.